Hi, I'm Jim W6LG, your YouTube Elmer. Welcome to my radio room here in Rockland, California. It was really windy last night with wind gusts at 60 and 70 miles an hour, enough to move a shed across the yard, and I'm sure it has done plenty of damage in the area. Um, Fortunately, my Yagi has survived. The tower's still up, so uh, so far I feel pretty lucky. In doing YouTube videos, occasionally one comes up that is maybe not so polite, or perhaps it's just a mistake, or in the way the person wrote it, or English is a second language. I don't know. But what I'd like to do, if I can, is read this one and then go over what I think the answer should be, because the kinds of things that he brings up come up a lot, and it's related to the last video, and this is his comment in the last video about one day ago, and the video at this point has had more than 4,000 views, so it's doing really well. And I'm going to read this verbatim, and in order to do that, I'm going to have to put on some glasses and see if I can read the screen. The comments that he made are as follows, and I'll take me off the screen and just slide that over. And he says, well, dud. A major spec of cables is the loss per meter at various frequencies. Read and learn them. Also, not mentioned is the connector loss at about 0.5 dB per connector. Let me read that again. He's saying 0.5 dB per connector, and he appears to be an expert. What you also have to think about is to never use only watts as a measure of loss. Always use decibels, which is the ratio of input to output. Okay. By doing this, you can understand that the transmitter power is affected, yes, but also the receiver signal is impacted. I don't know the difference between affected and impacted, but I think he means the same thing. As a point of note, commercial systems can accept up to 6 dB or more by compensating for the loss in planning. By compensating for the loss in planning. Okay, let's talk about that. And let's be polite to the gentleman who wrote in. He did have a comment, and he's, I think, trying to help. Although I don't know if I appreciate being called dud. And yes, I have read a bunch of data sheets and books on the subject, and have more than a little bit of familiarity with dB. He says a major spec of cables is the loss per meter, so he must be outside the United States. At various frequencies, read and learn them. Well, we're not going to memorize them, that's for sure. Also, not mentioned is the connector loss at about 0.5 dB per connector. Let's think about that for a minute. 0.5 dB per connector. Okay, does that make any sense at all? Does it add up in even the wildest situation? Yeah, it might at gigahertz or 2 gigahertz, but I was doing the test at 28 megahertz, 10 meters. Got to make sure my recorder's still running. The if that were true, What does that mean? That means that if you had 6 connectors, like SO239s, PL259s, PL258s, I don't know what he's talking about. That would add up to, let's see, if you had 6 of those, that would be 3 dB loss. Since he's an expert on the subject, he knows that 3 dB loss is 50%. He doesn't want to talk about watts, but the fact is, if you put a few watts into an attenuation device that has 3 dB, the signal coming out the other end is going to be, what, down by 50%. So we're going to do that test, but frankly, it makes no sense. And I think we'll find out that 5 or 6 connectors has less than 1/10 of a dB loss. In other words, really almost nothing. Never use only watts. Well, sure, you can use only watts. There's reasons for using decibels, for sure. But if you're not familiar with it, or it's beyond the scope of what you want to know, use watts and percentages. And yeah, the signal going out, the signal coming back, receive, transmit, it's reciprocal. Commercial systems, I don't know. Seems to me that 6 dB loss, if they can compensate for that, okay. Maybe over a path, if there's 6 dB loss, they can boost the power 4 times, because 6 dB is 4 times. 4 times the watts. I don't know what to think. I'm not sure what he's thinking about. I don't know. It's confusing to me. Back to what we're doing here. Let's do this. Let's measure the loss and see if in fact he's right at 0.5 dB. And if he's right, then he can call me dud. If he's wrong, he may owe me an apology. It seems extreme. I've measured that before. You may have seen the video where I strung like 30 connectors together and it didn't amount to anything. This time I'll do it a different way. I'll use the rig expert. Another person complained that I used it to measure return loss. Okay, that's what it's for. That I should have used a through loop on a different device. Well, if I take the signal going out and coming back, it sends out a pulse, goes all the way down, and comes back. So if I take that return loss and I divide by 2, isn't that the same thing? I mean, the loss going one direction is the same as the loss going the other direction. So I'm not sure where that comes from. I'm just an amateur. Amateur dud. Anyway, I'm going to set up and measure, and I may connect. I don't want to stress the connector on top of the Zoom 35. It's really well built, but I don't want to put a force on it if I string in a bunch of connectors. So I'll have to figure something out there. Well, I won't do 100 connectors. I won't do 30 connectors. I may do 6 or 12 or something. And what I'll do is I'll short the far end and I'll measure the return loss. I'll also do it with another device just to make sure the two coincide, but I already know they do. So anyway, all right, so quick break while I check for flooding. It is, boy. And if I can, I'll in the interim, during intermission, I'll bring up maybe the website called lightningmaps. It's .org. lightningmaps.org. All right, so I'm going to press the stop button, set up things, and do a quick test. I won't belabor the point. A lot of people have, back up a second, a lot of people have that same idea. It's 0.5 dB, and some think it's 1 dB per connector, especially on the right angle connectors. I have some that are World War II connectors and they don't exhibit that kind of loss. Do they have more loss? Yeah. Compared to a new one? Yeah. But that's okay. All right. Intermission. I'll be right back. Okay, I did string together 20 connectors. And SMA connectors, BNC connectors, UHF connectors, which of course aren't good at UHF. And then this far end is a cap, like you might put a weather cap on, and it's got a short out double female. So this is a nice round number, 20 connectors. Here's my rig expert, and I'm going to hook it up and measure the loss. Unfortunately, whether or not I can get that on camera, you may have to trust me here. So here goes. Okay, on, and all parameters, which is what I want to go to, so it's okay. I'm at 28.0 megahertz, which is where it was before. Okay, return loss. It's changing between 0.18 and 0.19. Okay, so it's 0.19 dB or 0.2. That's easier to figure. So that's 0.2, that's going out and coming back. So it's 0.1 dB through all of those connectors. In essence, 0. Because that's, again, going out, pulse going out, pulse coming back. So where the guy said there was 1 dB loss per connector or half a dB loss per connector, not even close. In essence, at HF, in all those connectors, there was no loss. I'm Jim, W6LG. Thanks for watching. If you have not subscribed, please do that. And I'm working on some other videos I think you'll find interesting.